Well, joining us now to discuss all these regional developments is retired IDF Colonel Dr. Jacques Neriah. He's a special analyst on the Middle East at the JCFA, former chief analyst also of Israeli military intelligence. Jacques, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Caleb, for having me.
Let's start with the situation with Iran. Where do you see it going? Iran so far is not backing down, is not agreeing to come to the table. How long do you think the situation will go on? And do you think there is a point in which Iran may also lash out at Israel as well, forcing Israel to respond?
Caleb, we know that the war between Iraq and Iran lasted for 10 years. So I hope that this is not the case. I think that the power of the United States is quite different than the one Saddam Hussein had at the time, and I think that the pressure that is put on the leadership in Iran will finally reach a situation or a point where they won't have any other choice but to sit around the table and begin discussion. And this is going to happen only if the United States will continue on two things. One, continuing the economic pressure, the blockade on Iran. This is one thing. And then hitting Iran from time to time, or even widening the scope of fire in Iran, hitting more and more targets, strategic targets, and this might bring Iran finally to the conclusion that it is better for them to sit and discuss a solution rather than suffer a complete disaster.
Jacques, it is interesting that in response to this fire by the U.S., we see Iran shooting back, claiming to shoot at U.S. bases in the Gulf, and even at their neighbors in the Gulf. But so far, at least in the last 48 hours, not striking again at Israel. What do you think that is? Do you think it's just concern or fear over Israeli retaliation, or there's some other strategic thought behind it?
You just said it, I think that if you compare Israel to Bahrain, to Kuwait, or even to the Emirates, you cannot compare the power of fire that Israel has and the way that we could influence the situation inside Iran by hitting really strategic the targets. And this is different. This is why the Iran would rather concentrate on Kuwait, on Bahrain, on the Emirates, and this would create, a sort of situation where the economy would be another card that that the Iranians are trying to use in order to put pressure on President Trump. So this is more or less the situation. They prefer, Israel to be left aside for the moment. It doesn't mean that they won't respond, that they won't hit Israel. I think that the boiling point would be if they realize that the situation is such that Hezbollah is under real pressure and could lose its positions in South Lebanon, and of course facing the Lebanese government. This would trigger intervention. And already, we are fighting Iranians already in Lebanon, because the Hezbollah is finally a unit inside the division of the Revolutionary Guards. And the officers there are Iranian. The orders are giving in Persian. The directive on fire are done by Iranians. We are fighting Iran on a Lebanese platform. This is what's happening. The only thing that is not happening is the widening of it, and the fact that Israel is restraining, not hitting the Dahya, the southern suburb of Beirut, the Bekaa Valley, the northern part of Lebanon. This is because, as you so rightly said earlier, because of the double game that the U.S. is playing right now. They are allowed to respond to a helicopter that is hit, but we are not allowed to respond to rockets that are fired on Israeli villages.
Well, let me ask you about that then, because if we're not firing on Beirut, the Bekaa Valley, how effective is what Israel is doing right now in South Lebanon? Is this the strategy? There are people who question putting those soldiers in stationary positions there, where they're subject, for example, to exposure from these drone attacks by Hezbollah.
leaving the drones aside, and I hope that a solution would be found very, very soon. The strategy that Israel is following in South Lebanon is creating havoc in northern Lebanon. What do I mean? We are pressuring the two towns, Nabatea on the eastern side and Tyre on the western side, to displace the population northwards. This is a situation that is intolerable for Hezbollah and certainly for the Lebanese government, because right now you have almost 40,000 families living in tents in the sports city of Beirut. So you add to this 250,000 people. This is the strategy of Israel, to empty South Lebanon, making Hezbollah ridiculous, facing his opponents and criticism in Lebanon, saying, okay, you claim that you brought the Israeli withdrawal in the year 2000. Now you just were the one that brought them back. Not only brought them back, and today 68 villages, Shiite villages, are under the Israeli control, almost totally destroyed, and others are on the way to be destroyed. This is a very failing strategy, and I think that this is the card that Israel is playing. I don't think that with this card you are going to finally defeat Hezbollah. Defeating Hezbollah demands something else, demands to attack his economic structure, and his economic structure is based on a bank that is not part of the Lebanese system. It's called Qard al Hassan. It has 40 places all over the Lebanon. About 400,000 people are in this bank, and this bank carries in its coffers 15 tons of gold, because they give the $5,000 in loans in return to jewelry, to gold, whatever they receive from needy families. So if we hit that, and this machine is the brain, it's the washing machine of Hezbollah. All the monies that come from all sorts of sources, Iranian, West Africa, South America, Lebanese in Europe, all this is washed into this Qard al Hassan, and this is the place that the Americans have pointed at, but till now they haven't taken any measure that would implement an economic blockade on Hezbollah. This would bring him into ruins.
And I guess as part of Israel's strategy, as say, maybe if you want to say humiliating or undermining Hezbollah, we see these direct messages or appeals from Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Herzog, even speaking in Arabic. Jacques is someone who knows Lebanon, who was born and raised there. How do those messages go over there? How do the Lebanese see? Is there any point to making those kind of appeals?
I think that there's part of the public in Lebanon that is listening to those. I think that the Israeli IDF Colonel Abichai Adrei is very well known in Lebanon, and he's quoted all the time. And his videos are circulating and making fun of Hezbollah. But I mean, this is part of the criticism that is addressed against Hezbollah. It doesn't mean that the whole public is with it, but I can tell you that there are some cracks in the Shiite wall, and these cracks, we can see that around 200 residents of the town of Tyre and Nabatea have written a letter to the President Joseph Aoun, asking him to transform those cities into open cities, meaning that they don't want to see Hezbollah there. So if this is a sign, I think that this is something very important that we should follow very, very closely.
Finally, Jacques, I want to ask you, obviously, it's clear the Lebanese army does not have the military might or will to take on Hezbollah directly. Other international parties have been ineffective. The UNIFIL troops and countries don't want to put in the troops. There has been a suggestion, some people propose letting Syria, the Syrian forces and armies into Lebanon. Of course, Syria, the current Syrian government, is a firm opponent of Hezbollah. But many in Israel simply don't trust the current president, Ashara, given his jihadist past. What do you think about that idea? It wouldn't be the first time Syrian troops have gone into Lebanon.
Caleb, I have raised this idea a few months ago, saying that Lebanon, being a failed state, we should divide between us and Syria spheres of influence. Syria from Beirut, Damascus northward, and Israel from Beirut, Damascus southwards. And I think that this might be a good solution, but the problem is that the return of Syrian troops into Lebanon is a nightmare. Is a nightmare because, I mean, they were invited in 1976 and they left in 2005. So I don't think that the Lebanese would like to see another occupation, another army of occupation, certainly not Syrians. If this is limited to skirmishes or to an invasion or an incursion into Baalbek and Hermel in the northern part of Lebanon, and I mean there's a bad blood between Ahmad al-Shara and Hezbollah. Certainly, he remembers Hezbollah has been very active in killing thousands of Syrians during the civil war. So this is, but I mean, it's not only Jacques who spoke about that. What is more interesting that the Lebanese, the American ambassador to Lebanon has raised the issue, and more important, Donald Trump himself has signaled that this might be a solution. I mean, because of his good relations with Ahmad al-Shah, he thinks he's a good guy, as a great guy, and I think, I mean, unlike Israel, who look at Ahmad al-Shah as still a jihadist, I think that the American administration is looking in another way, and certainly, if this is a limited intervention, it could be one of the solutions because Hezbollah would not be able to fight on two fronts.
Right. It would be interesting. The Syrian army previously was in Lebanon as a supporter of Hezbollah, and now would be going in as opponent of Hezbollah. That's the way the wheel turns in history in the Middle East. Colonel Jacques Neriah, thank you for joining us on ILTV.
Thank you. Thank you.